A man who has interviewed presidents, scientists, and killers just completely lost his composure on camera.
This is the one that I hate the most.
Yeah.
Because this one scares the shit out of me. Because the fear of, we talked about this yesterday with Roger Avery, the fear of these like literally demonic human beings that are running the world and don't give a fuck about human lives and enjoy watching people being tortured.
That wasn't a bit. That wasn't a joke. That was a man who has spent years telling people to think for themselves, realizing he had been living inside the very system he warned everyone about.
Don't let your kids get into acting. Do not let your kids get into that.
And now with the Epstein files officially released, what Joe Rogan has been hinting at for years is being confirmed name by name, email by email, file by file. There's a million. But here's what nobody is connecting. The Epstein files didn't just expose powerful men on an island. They confirmed something that Hollywood insiders, comedians, and industry veterans have been screaming about for decades. That surviving in Hollywood requires sacrifices that most people would never even believe are real. Joe Rogan just connected every single. And when he did, he lost it. Let's go back to the beginning. Because this story doesn't start with Jeffrey Epstein. It starts long before him in the very DNA of how Hollywood was built. Joe Rogan has been in and around the entertainment industry since the early 1990s. He's seen things. He's heard things. And for years he talked about it in hints careful enough not to name names, but specific enough that anyone paying attention knew exactly what he meant.
A million.
That's a bedroom inside a studio office, not a private island in the Caribbean, not a secret penthouse, just an office with a bedroom attached. And every actress who wanted a career in Hollywood knew what that bedroom meant. Joe made it clear this wasn't a secret.
It was a system.
And the system had been running for decades before anyone dared say a word about it. And here's what's critical to understand before we go any further. The people who kept that system alive weren't just the ones doing harm. They were the ones standing around, watching, staying quiet, and collecting their paychecks.
This is just from what I heard.
Right.
But, Tarantino was telling us about this old school Hollywood producer who had a bedroom in his office.
Sure.
So you would go into his office, and this is like, in the 60s or whatever. So he had his office, and then he had a whole bedroom in his studio.
Yeah.
Where he would bang all the starlets. Like, if you wanted to be a star, you had to bang that guy. Which is just the deal with the devil that has always been that business.
Let that sink in for a second. Harvey Weinstein, one of the most powerful men in Hollywood history, had sexual harassment written into his employment contract, not as a liability, as a budget line. First offense, $100,000. Second offense, $250,000. Third, $750,000. Fourth, $1 million, paid, done, move on. The company didn't fire him. The company priced him. That's not a scandal. That's a policy. And everyone from the agents to the executives to the award show hosts smiled at him on the red carpet anyway. Now, here's where Joe Rogan stopped hinting and started being direct, because it isn't just about one producer with a bedroom in his office. The pressure to comply to go along runs through every level of the industry. Joe spent years on a TV set before he became the most powerful podcaster on earth. And what he witnessed on those sets shaped everything he would later say about Hollywood.
There's an arrogance that some stars had. They would let you know that you are subhuman. You are below them. They would communicate with you in the most disrespectful and dismissive ways. Like weird, like mousy guys that I could, like instantly. And they would just be rude to you in a really weird way because they had power.
He watched people be treated like objects, dismissed, humiliated, used by men who turned their charm on the moment someone with more power walked into the room. And then he started to realize something. That treatment wasn't random cruelty. It was a test. It was the industry showing you who was in charge and watching to see if you take it, because the ones who took it quietly got access. The ones who pushed back got nothing. And then there were the children.
Hollywood managers who manage kids, it's a racket, man.
Did you hear that kid from Strange?
These kids, dude.
This was Rogan years ago. Not after the Epstein files. Not after Diddy's arrest. This was him before any of it became public, already knowing that children in Hollywood were being exploited, and that the managers who were supposed to protect them were often the first ones enabling it. And Sturgill Simpson, a country music outsider who spent years watching Nashville operate, told Joe the same disease had infected the music industry, too.
He said the same thing exists in music.
What?
He said in music, there's a bunch of pedos and pederasties.
About the whole entertainment
so it's
business.
women and kids.
Mostly kids.
Most kids film television, music the same system, the same silence, the same price of admission. Now, here's where the story gets undeniable. Because for years, when Joe Rogan talked about Hollywood's dark underbelly, people called it conspiracy theory, paranoia, drama, and then Jeffrey Epstein's files started dropping. And suddenly, everything Rogan had been circling around for 2 decades had names attached to it.
It's so tangled. You know, the whole thing is just, I think everybody who looks at it realizes this is a rabbit hole that just goes to the center of the earth. And there's so many people involved in it.
More than 305 names. The files contain more than 305 names. Elite figures from entertainment, government, finance, and royalty. And what Joe Rogan had described as a culture of coercion and control inside Hollywood suddenly had documented evidence behind it. Think about what Epstein actually was. Strip away the island, the plane, the infamous Black Book, and what you have is a man who understood exactly what powerful people wanted and built an infrastructure to provide it. And the infrastructure wasn't just about women on an island.
Everybody is a supplier. Epstein, Weinstein, like these guys knew what these extremists liked and provided it.
Epstein and Weinstein, 2 men, 2 networks, 1 purpose. Weinstein sourced talent. He controlled access to film roles, awards, and industry credibility. Epstein sourced access to something darker. And according to both Joe Rogan and Cat Williams, the 2 networks weren't separate operations. They were feeding the same machine. And the Epstein files are beginning to confirm it. One of the emails that surfaced showed Epstein referencing a torture video sent to him by a foreign dignitary, not as evidence of a crime, as a thank you.
There was one where this one guy is saying to him, "Thank you for the torture video." It's literally a part of an email. The actual quote, "Thank you for the torture," like enjoyed the torture video.
It's so gross.
Let that email sit with you for a moment. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't a theory. This was an email in the files from a man who ran one of the world's largest port operations, thanking Jeffrey Epstein for sending him a video of someone being tortured. And the files show this man was connected to Epstein for years. They discussed women. They discussed world leaders. They discussed business. All while trading the darkest content imaginable through private messages. Now, ask yourself, if a shipping billionaire was operating at that level, what were the Hollywood elites on that same guest list doing? This is the part that's been going viral. And it's the moment that tells you everything about where Joe Rogan's head is right now. Because Joe has been one of the most measured voices in alternative media for years. He lets guests talk. He plays devil's advocate. He pushes back. He rarely shows emotion that feels out of control. But when the Epstein files started dropping and when the connection to Hollywood became impossible to deny, something shifted.
This is the one that I hate the most.
Yeah.
Because this one scares the shit out of me. Because the fear of, we talked about this yesterday with Roger Avery, the fear of these like literally demonic human beings that are running the world and don't give a fuck about human lives and enjoy watching people being tortured, enjoy watching people killed, participating in ritual sacrifice of people, and they do it in order to show that you're a part of a team. And we know that has always historically been a real thing.
That was not a calculated media personality reading talking points. That was a man who has spent years uncovering this story, watching it slowly get confirmed in real time, and finally allowing himself to feel the full weight of what it means. He used the word demonic. He said ritual sacrifice. And he wasn't theorizing. He was reacting to what was sitting in the actual files. And Roger Avery, the Academy Award-winning screenwriter who co-wrote Pulp Fiction and has spent decades inside Hollywood's upper circles, backed him up completely.
Man, like that's
Do you think so that you think is real? So,
well, yeah, not only that, I think that there's, sacrifices going on every day in Los Angeles. I mean, allegedly, high level, musicians, let's say, high level female musician, is chickens every day doing sacrifices,
high level.
Well, I don't want to say, I don't want to say names because I don't want to get sued. And I don't want to be dead either.
I don't want to be dead either. That's an Oscar-winning filmmaker, not some anonymous account online telling Joe Rogan on record that he won't name names because he fears for his life. That's not paranoia. That's a man who has seen enough to know exactly what the consequences of speaking out can be. Speaking now, here's the question nobody is asking loud enough. If this is the system, if this is what Hollywood demands, what happens to the people who refuse Dave Chappelle? There is no cleaner answer to that question than Dave Chappelle. In 2004, Dave was the hottest comedian on the planet. His show was pulling in tens of millions of viewers. Comedy Central came to him with a $50 million offer to keep making it.
Dave Chappelle was decapitated in front of us. And until we deal with that, until we deal with the fact that a devout Muslim who doesn't eat bacon was accused of being a crackhead. And he flew past Chicago and Miami and LA and New York and Detroit. You said he went past Cleveland and Fort Pierce, Florida, and he went past Okeechobee and Oakland. You said he went to another country where they're not eating.
Right.
Lee told him on his way home from Los Angeles that by the time he landed in Ohio, his fans would believe he was a crackhead. And they were right. Cat Williams confirmed it. Joe Rogan confirmed it. And the pattern has only become more obvious as more names have come out of the Epstein files. Because the same machinery that destroyed Chappelle's reputation is the same machinery that kept hundreds of powerful men protected on those redacted pages for years. You want to know how they protected themselves? Character station, controlled narratives, the industry consensus that if you speak out, you will be made to look insane before the words even leave your mouth. Because here's the thing about the Epstein files that Joe Rogan cannot get past. And this is where he truly lost his composure. It's not just what was in the files, it's who was protecting them. Howard Lutnick, the current United States Secretary of Commerce, a man who went on camera and delivered one of the most morally outraged performances in recent memory, telling the interviewer that after meeting Epstein once and seeing a massage table, he went home to his wife and vowed to never be in the same room as that disgusting person ever again.
Opens the door, and there's a massage table in the middle of the room. And candles all around and stuff. So I ask very insightful, cutting questions.
I say to him, massage table in the middle of your house? How often you have a massage? And he says, every day. And then he gets weirdly close to me.
Oh.
And he says, and the right kind of massage. Now my wife is standing here. So she looks at me and I look at her and we say, I'm sorry. We have to go.
And we left.
And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again. Beautiful story, except the emails show he kept in contact with Epstein for years after that. He invested money with him, and in one documented email, he coordinated a boat trip with his children on board to visit Epstein's Island. The email lists the ages of the children, 2 16-year-olds, 2 14-year-olds, a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 7-year-old. A man who told the world he was so disgusted by Jeffrey Epstein that he cut contact immediately was bringing children to his island.
Is it wild that people who are on the files visited the island and then they still work?
It was unbelievable.
Some people had to resign from some jobs.
Well, especially just him because the way there's something about a really confident liar, where they just, because I mean, that interview clip where he's like, let me tell you something. I met Jeffrey Epstein that one time.
And Lutnick is not an outlier. He's an example. Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett sitting in a live congressional hearing in 2019 questioning Michael Cohen on behalf of the American people was simultaneously texting Jeffrey Epstein in real time. He was telling her what to ask. She was following his instructions on live television with a camera on her face.
Jeffrey Epstein was texting with congressional delegate Stacey Plaskett while she was sitting in a congressional hearing with President Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen in 2019. Epstein texts, Cohen brought up Rona, keeper of the secrets. Plaskett responds, Rona? Quick, I'm up next. Is that an acronym? Epstein replies, that's his assistant. About 7 minutes later, Plaskett asked Cohen about Trump's assistant.
A convicted offender directing a congressional hearing through a sitting member of Congress in real time, and they try to censure her for it and failed. This is the machine Joe Rogan is talking about when he loses his composure. Not conspiracy theory, not paranoia, documented, time-stamped in the files. So, we come back to the original question. What does it actually cost to survive in Hollywood? Joe Rogan has now lived long enough and investigated deeply enough to give you the full answer, and it's not pretty. For some people, it costs their silence. They watch what happens in rooms they were lucky enough to get invited into, and they say nothing because the alternative is losing everything. For some people, it costs their dignity. They make the deal, they go to the party, they stay on the island, they do what's asked, and they collect what was promised. For some people, it costs their life's work. Like Dave Chappelle, who chose his integrity over $50 million and spent 8 years watching an industry he helped build pretend he didn't exist. And for Stephen Twitch Boss, executive producer of The Ellen DeGeneres Show, it may have cost everything. According to sources close to the investigation, Twitch possessed evidence, compromising evidence involving figures connected to both Ellen DeGeneres and Sean Combs. He checked into a motel alone. He switched his phone to airplane mode, so no one could reach him, and he left a note. The note has never been made fully public. Joe Rogan has been pointing at this world for years. The Epstein files are now the receipts. And what's becoming impossible to ignore is that the same culture of coercion and silence that Harvey Weinstein used to run Hollywood for decades was operating on a global scale, and people at every level of government, entertainment, and finance were either participating in it or protecting those who were.
Weird.
Very strange.
Very weird. But it kind of makes sense. Because if you're a 60-year-old billionaire and you're a freak and you like to get your freak on, but unfortunately you're a gigantic software developer and everybody knows who you are.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to get your freak on.
Well, that's the thing is like, it makes sense when you go like, oh, some of these dudes really liked visiting that place.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the only place they can go.
Right.
You can't go anywhere else.
Right. And that's why they said.
That's where we are. The files are out. The names are attached. The emails exist. And the man who has been telling you something was deeply wrong with this industry for over 2 decades just completely lost his composure. Not because he was surprised, but because he wasn't. He already knew. And now so do you. If you've made it this far, you already understand that this story is bigger than any single name in those files. This is about a system, a machine, one that was built to protect itself and punish anyone who threatened it. Joe Rogan didn't lose his cool because of one email. He lost it because the files confirmed what he's been saying for years, that the price of making it in Hollywood has always been far darker than any red carpet would ever show you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who in those files shocked you the most? Who do you think knew everything and stayed quiet? Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, because this story is not over. Not even close.